Coaching pole vaulters requires a working knowledge of mechanics. For the athlete to vault correctly, he must first be well conditioned. Our vault coach at the University of Oregon, Dennis Whitby, has a specialized program for vaulters emphasizing the most up-to-date training progression.
The pole vaulter requires qualities which are unique to his event. He requires speed on the runway and during the vault itself. He also requires dynamic flexibility and explosive strength. Our program aims to satisfy these requirements while, at the same time, developing confidence, spatial awareness, and technique. In this program, we will outline the power development, flexibility development, and running conditioning programs followed by our vaulters.
At the University of Oregon, 3 different programs of development are combined. In the first program, the athletes develop strength endurance by using a combination of Nautilus and free weights. Absolute strength is developed by using just the free weights. And last, explosive strength is developed by using powerlifting. Nautilus exercises allow the athlete to work one muscle group in isolation and to develop the muscle groups throughout their range of movement. The following Nautilus exercises are used by our vaulters to develop strength endurance. The back extension exercise is used to develop the muscles of the lower back. The hip and back exercise allows the athlete to develop muscles used in leg drive, an important component of the vaulter's approach and takeoff. Good hip extension is also important in assisting the vaulter to maintain a trail leg hang immediately following takeoff. Leg curls are performed to develop the athlete's hamstrings. Hamstrings are too often neglected in conditioning. They counterbalance the powerful quadricep group of muscles. Leg extensions and the leg press are both used to develop the quadriceps, an important muscle group used in leg extension. The abductor-adductor machine is used to develop the much neglected abductors and adductors of the legs. Toe raises are performed 3 ways, with the feet rotated outward, with the feet parallel, and with the feet rotated inward. This exercise develops the gastrocnemius, or calf muscles. The behind-the-neck pull-down and pull-over exercises are used by our vaulters to develop upper body strength, so important in the pole vault. Free weights exercises cause the athlete to use more muscle groups when lifting. The additional groups are needed to add stability during the lift. Our vaulters perform the following free weights exercises. The bench press develops the muscles of the upper chest, shoulders, and arms. The inclined bench press places stress on the upper pectoralis muscles of the chest and on the anterior deltoid of the shoulder. Extended upright rowing places emphasis on the muscles of the shoulders. The clean and jerk and snatch hang are 2 power lifts which are used by vaulters later in the year. These lifts demand the use of speed in their performance. No 2 programs of strength and power development are the same. The progressions used by our vaulters performing Nautilus and free weight exercises are probably different from many others. The basic aim of the athlete, however, is to overload the body by increasing resistance in terms of weight or repetitions. Adequate rest between repetitions is also necessary, and any weight program should always be performed under close supervision.
In the second program of strength and power development, the vaulter uses his body weight as resistance. Using the following exercises, the athlete develops strength endurance. By adding speed, he also develops explosive strength.
Strong hip flexors are important to the vaulter because they contribute to good knee pickup during the approach and takeoff. They are even more important as the vaulter moves from the extended trail leg hang position into the rock back position. A number of drills can be performed to develop these muscles, including V sit-ups. Incline sit-ups develop the abdominal muscles. Handstand push-ups and hand walking increase the strength of the shoulders and triceps. Other exercises can be used to develop explosive strength. 2 are shown here. Running stadium steps, with or without a weight, develops leg drive and knee pickup. Split squats place emphasis on the thighs. With up to 40 pounds on his shoulders, the athlete performs continuous splits jumping from one extended position to the next. Tumbling exercises on the floor can help develop the explosive strength required by the vaulter. Here, the athlete rolls backward into the rock back position and extends into a handstand.
The third program of strength and power development includes exercises performed with the athlete suspended in the air. Some of the exercises shown develop strength endurance. Others develop explosive strength and technique.
Rope climbs using the arms only develop upper body strength endurance. A more advanced exercise consists of the athlete pulling himself up with his legs raised in a pike position, or, as shown here, in an upside down position. A number of different exercises can be used for the development of the biceps and triceps. Pull-ups strengthen the biceps. Dips place emphasis on the triceps. The hip flexors are developed by performing the hip flexion exercise with the athlete suspended from a bar or from the rings. Explosive strength is developed using this drill. Hanging from the rings or on a rope, the vaulter moves through the rock back position into the fully extended position assumed just before he clears the bar. Good technique is stressed here. For a right-handed vaulter, the right leg is driven upward and across the left shoulder. The left leg cuts back and under in a scissors movement. Simultaneously, the hips are thrust upward, preceding the pulling action of the arms. The result is a spiraling action of the body. An excellent variation of this drill consists of the vaulter underswinging forward as if performing a normal half-turn dismount. Instead, he drives the right leg up and across the left shoulder, cuts the left leg back, and thrusts the hip vertically, attempting to gain as much height as possible during the half-turn dismount. The same drill is shown with the vaulter attempting to clear a tape. This exercise is called the power cast. The exercises shown here represent a larger number of exercises which can be used for conditioning the pole vaulter. Many vaulters incorporate advanced exercise routines on the rings, parallel bars, and high bar in their strength and power development programs. These drills have the added advantage of developing spatial awareness and confidence.
Flexibility is probably the most neglected area of conditioning. Yet flexibility is of utmost importance to the vaulter for a number of reasons. First, it reduces the chance of soreness and injury. Second, the athlete can develop hip extension by stretching the quadriceps. Hip extension permits greater leg drive during the approach. Third, stretching the hamstrings and gluteals in addition to the quadriceps allows the athlete to pick up his knees on the runway while maintaining leg drive. Fourth, flexible hamstrings, gluteals, and quadriceps, combined with good shoulder hyperflexion, permits the vaulter to attain a good position at takeoff. Finally, good flexibility of the gluteals and lower back is necessary for the pole vaulter to be able to attain a good rock back position during the vault. For these reasons, our pole vaulters perform a number of exercises daily designed to increase their flexibility.
The first group of exercises shown are used to stretch the upper hamstrings and gluteals of the lead leg and the muscles of the anterior hip of the driving trail leg. In the first exercise, the vaulter stretches the upper hamstrings. One leg is kept flat on the ground, the knee of the other leg is straightened. Once the knee reaches the chest, the lower hamstrings are also stretched. In the second exercise, the athlete stretches the quadriceps and gastrocnemius, or calf muscle, of the straightened trail leg as it is pressed upward. The same muscle groups are stretched in this exercise as the heel of the straightened trail leg is pressed backwards and the crotch pressed downwards towards the ground in an attempt to increase the angle between the thighs. The athlete can stretch the hamstrings and gastrocnemius by taking small steps and working the feet toward the hands. Pressing the heels to the ground further stretches the gastrocnemius. In the next position, the front and back splits, the athlete again attempts to increase the angle between his thighs. With the heel of the straightened front leg on the ground, the hamstrings and gastrocnemius of that leg are stretched. The quadriceps of the trail leg are stretched. If kept straight, the gastrocnemius of that leg is stretched by pressing the heel backward and the crotch downward. Because hip extension is so important to leg drive during the approach and at takeoff, extra drills are recommended for stretching these muscles. 2 are shown here. In both, the athlete presses upwards with the hips. Shoulder flexibility is also important for developing a good takeoff position. The exercises shown here are used to develop shoulder hyperextension. In the first exercise, the athlete presses his chest towards the floor. In the second exercise, he simultaneously works on hip extension and shoulder hyperflexion while simulating the takeoff position. The exercises shown here can be used in two separate situations. First, when warming up for practice or competition, the athlete can perform them to regain his existing range of motion. Second, the athlete can use them away from the track to actually increase his range of motion and thus his running and vaulting efficiency.
The pole vaulter needs speed. The force applied during the plant, the resultant bend in the pole, and the degree of penetration are determined by the speed of the vaulter on the runway. Many top vaulters have demonstrated better than 11-second speed for the 100 meters at takeoff. An important part of our conditioning program, therefore, is running conditioning. This is subdivided into 4 elements: over-distance efficiency running, under-distance speed work, strength endurance, and speed endurance.
Over-distance efficiency running is designed to improve the endurance of the vaulter. Our vaulters begin over-distance work in the fall. Throughout the year, the distances covered decreases, becoming speed work later in the year. A vaulter running a 330 and 6 165s in the fall might run 2 165s and 6 60s in March. The athlete takes as much rest between repetitions as required, sometimes aiming for a target time which decreases during the year. One session is run each week throughout the year. In addition to this workout, vaulters at the U of O perform a set of sprints each week starting in December. These sprints consist of 110s and 165s in November and December, 55s, 110s, and 165s in January and February, and 55s and 110s in March. Later in the year, these sprints are replaced or supplemented by pole carries. An erect body position, stride consistency, and good rhythm are emphasized. Technique jumping sessions, of course, performed with a full approach, provide the most specific form of running conditioning.
The vaulter accelerates during his approach to reach his maximum controllable speed. To increase the amount of force available during the approach, the vaulter must develop strength endurance.
2 workouts are designed to increase strength endurance. The first, performed in October and November, is performed over an 800-yard hilly terrain course. As many as 4 repetitions are run with a 60-second rest between repetitions. The second strength endurance workout, hill running, alternates with the sprint session outlined previously. Running up a 25% grade, the athlete places overload on the driving muscles of the leg. A workout on the hill for the vaulter totals approximately 600 yards. Short distances only are used, and maintenance of good running form is emphasized.
Speed endurance is the quality which allows the athlete to maintain his speed. Speed loss for the vaulter can be a major factor in his performance because of the additional weight of the pole. The vaulter must be able to perform his approach to perfection a number of times in both competition and workouts. In order to maintain his running form and speed, therefore, the athlete must develop speed endurance.
In the fall, the vaulter might perform 4 165s with a 55-yard walk or a 60-second rest between each repetition. During subsequent weeks, intensity can be increased by adding reps or by decreasing the resting interval. From January on, the emphasis is on quality with fewer repetitions, increased resting intervals, faster times, and shorter distances being run. From January on also, this workout is replaced or supplemented by pole carries. Again, good form is emphasized throughout the year.
Strength and power development, flexibility development, and running conditioning. 3 areas to develop in the aspiring vaulter. The pole vault is one event which requires years of experience, conditioning, and practice to master. By applying the principles of conditioning discussed in this program, the young vaulter can build a foundation of strength and coordination necessary to become an accomplished vaulter.
The jumping events are among the hardest of all track and field events to coach. Over the years, jump styles for the high jump, long jump, and triple jumps have changed considerably. At the University of Oregon, Coach Dennis Whitby has developed a successful program for conditioning jumping athletes.
In the long jump and the high jump, an important factor is the conversion of horizontal momentum into vertical lift. In the triple jump, this horizontal momentum must be maintained throughout the phases of the jump. In each of these events, the strength of the athlete is an important factor in his success.
Jumps conditioning at the University of Oregon is broken down into three major areas: strength and power development, flexibility development, and running conditioning. Much of the conditioning is common to all three jumps discussed in this program. These drills and exercises will be covered first. Then the drills and exercises specific to each event will be considered.
The strength and power development program followed by our jumpers consists of three parallel programs. In the first, we develop strength endurance using a combined program of Nautilus and free weights exercises. Then, while continuing this program, we emphasize the development of absolute strength, or the ability to perform one maximum repetition on one or two leg lifts. Later, we supplement this program with the use of one power lift, the snatch hang.
Nautilus exercises allow the athlete to work on one muscle group in isolation. They also allow the muscle group to be developed throughout its range of motion. The following Nautilus exercises are used by jumpers to build strength endurance. The back extension exercise is used to develop the muscles of the lower back. This is obviously important to the high jumper who uses the flop style. Incline sit-ups are used to strengthen the abdominal muscles. There are many variations of this exercise. The high jumper must build the abdominal muscles to stabilize the pelvis and to prevent hyperextension of the lower back. The horizontal jumper needs strength in the abdominal area to establish a good landing position. The hip and back exercise allows the athlete to develop muscles which are used in leg drive, an important component of the approach and takeoff. Good hip extension is also necessary for the high jumper, since this is the main determinant of an efficient back layout position over the bar. Leg curls are performed to strengthen the athlete's hamstrings. Hamstrings are too often neglected in conditioning. They counterbalance the powerful quadricep muscle groups. The abductor-adductor machine is used to develop the much-neglected abductors and adductors of the leg. Toe raises, performed with feet rotated inward, parallel, and extended outward, allow full development of the calf muscles. High jumpers and triple jumpers perform two other exercises specific to their events. The neck and shoulders and the compound shoulder exercises build the shoulder muscles which are important to the double arm driving action used in these events.
Not everyone has access to Nautilus equipment. Similar exercises to those performed using Nautilus equipment can be performed using free weights.
Free weights exercises force the athlete to use more muscle groups when lifting. Additional groups are used to add stability. Jumpers perform the following free weights exercises as part of their strength endurance program. Here, a jumper is performing the half squat and the stride squat exercises. These are performed in order to strengthen the quadricep muscles. A number of exercises can be used to develop the biceps and triceps. Here we see the use of the curl and triceps extension. Knee pickup is important to the jumper during his approach, his takeoff, and for the horizontal jumper, his landing. The muscles used in this movement are developed by using the hip flexion exercise. Step-ups onto a bench while carrying a weight can be used to develop the muscles involved in leg drive. Here we see the jumper driving up with his free leg and fully extending his supporting leg. The snatch hang is used later in the year to develop the explosive strength needed on takeoff. The jumper adds speed to the strength gained earlier to lift the bar as high as possible.
There is no one rule that the athlete must follow in his attempt to gain strength. No two programs are the same, but the basic aim of the athlete is to overload the body, whether in terms of resistance, number of repetitions, or number of sets. A weight training program must be performed under close supervision.
The second program for strength development parallels the one just outlined and is aimed at building explosive strength. High jumpers need explosive strength in order to transfer horizontal momentum into vertical lift. Triple jumpers following takeoff need explosive strength to take the body weight on single leg landings and drive it forward and upward. First, we will look at the drills performed by all of the jumpers. We will then examine the drills specific to each event. A good drill for developing quickness and strength in the legs is hurdle jumping. Performed over hurdles placed 7 to 9 feet apart, the athlete includes speed and strength in one drill. This drill might initially be done over 10 hurdles. It can be done using both legs and then each leg separately, each attempt being timed. The number of hurdles and the distance between hurdles can be increased as the athlete becomes stronger. Another drill which is effective for building explosive strength is bounding up stadium seats using either a single or double arm action. Sometimes performed with a weighted vest, this drill might be performed 10 or 12 times. The number of repetitions can be increased as strength is gained. The leaper machine is used extensively by jumpers. The leaper allows the athlete to determine the angle of the knees, the resistance, and the speed at which he operates. This exercise is performed to develop explosive strength. Other explosive strength drills have the advantage of simultaneously developing other areas of the event. These drills are depth jumping, combination jumping, and box jumping. Here we see a triple jumper performing a typical depth jumping drill which focuses on the hop-step phase of the event. Taking off from the box, he lands on the same foot on the floor, then drives his free knee through to step with the other foot onto a second box. This drill allows the athlete to develop the explosive strength necessary to take his body weight on the hop landing and drive it upward and forward into the step. To be successful, the athlete must also concentrate on his entire landing technique so that the momentum can be maintained. The jumper can also concentrate on his arm drive and free knee drive, which are other aspects of the technique of the hop-step phase of the triple jump. Other drills emphasize other phases of the jump. Modifications of this drill are also used by high jumpers and long jumpers. Box drills are primarily done by triple jumpers. These drills develop body speed throughout the jump, explosive strength, and technique. Here we see a jumper taking off at the end of a short approach, landing at the end of the step phase on top of the box, then completing the jump. Combination jumping is probably the best all-around form of conditioning for triple jumpers. It can be used to develop strength, strength endurance, speed and technique. Here we see a jumper using a hop-hop, step-step rhythm example of combination jumping. This might be repeated for 12 counts. For explosive strength, the athlete can wear a weighted vest when doing the drill. For strength endurance, a number of 12-count repetitions would be used with adequate rest in between each. For speed endurance, 3 or 4 such repetitions might be performed with a limited resting interval between each. For speed, a maximum resting interval would be used, the distance covered would be measured, and each repetition timed. For technique, there is the opportunity to concentrate on such aspects as active landing and free leg drive. The variations of this exercise for the triple jumpers are numerous. A high jumper might concentrate on hopping using his takeoff leg as the supporting leg. A long jumper might work mainly on stepping, concentrating on knee pickup. The rotational takeoff drill is another drill used by high jumpers to develop explosive strength and technique. 3 or 4 hurdles are placed in a circle. The athlete rotates around the circle in the same direction used when cutting for the bar in competition. He hits the ground quickly, attempting to simulate his takeoff. He clears the hurdle, landing on his takeoff foot, then takes 2 strides to bring him back to his takeoff foot for the next takeoff and landing. The same drill can be performed with hurdles in a straight line.
Flexibility is probably the most neglected area of conditioning, yet good flexibility is important to the jumper for a number of reasons. First, it reduces the chance of soreness and injury. Second, good flexibility of the quads increases hip extension and leg drive. Third, by stretching the gluteals and the hamstrings in addition to the quads, the athlete can increase his stride length. If the leg speed remains constant, any increase in stride length implies an increase in body speed during the approach. Good flexibility of the calves, hamstrings, gluteals, and lower back is necessary for the long and triple jumper to establish a good landing position at the end of his jump.
The long, high, and triple jumpers at the University of Oregon perform a number of exercises daily to increase their flexibility. we will first show those performed by all jumpers. All jumpers are concerned with the flexibility of the upper hamstring and gluteals of the lead leg and the muscles of the anterior hip of the driving trail leg. In the first exercise, the athlete stretches the upper hamstrings. One leg is kept flat on the ground. The knee of the other leg is pressed to the chest. If the leg is straightened once the knee reaches the chest, the lower hamstrings are also stretched. Next, the athlete stretches the quadriceps and the calf muscle of the straightened leg as it is pressed upward. The same group of muscles are stretched in this exercise as the heel of the straightened trail leg is pressed backward and the crotch is pressed downward in an attempt to increase the angle between the thighs. With the knee bent as shown, the soleus muscle is stretched by pressing the heel backward. In the next position, the front and back splits, the athlete again tries to increase the angle between his thighs. With the heel of the straightened front leg on the ground, the hamstrings and calf of that leg are stretched, and the quadriceps of the trail leg are stretched. If kept straight, the calf of that leg is stretched by pressing the heel backward and the crotch downward. As in the previous exercise, the soleus is stretched by pressing the heel backward with the knee bent. The athlete can stretch the hamstrings and calves by taking small steps toward the hands, which are placed on the ground. Pressing the heels to the ground at the same time further stretches the calves. The muscles of the anterior leg can be stretched by kneeling on the ground and sitting back on the heels. Pressure is applied downward through the ankle joint. This can help prevent shin splints, a common injury. When performing these exercises, the athlete should apply pressure for about 5 seconds in what is called the end position, or the position beyond which it is painful to go. He then relaxes and repeats the procedure 8 or 10 times.
Good shoulder flexibility is required in all jumps because the restricted arm action can cause unwanted rotational limb movements and limit leg drive and stride length during the approach. The horizontal jumper also requires good shoulder flexibility to perform an efficient arm action during the hang or hitch kick phase of the jump.
The two exercises shown here develop flexibility in the shoulder muscle groups. Because of the specific demands of their events, jumpers require additional selected stretching exercises. Because hip extension is important for an efficient back layout position over the bar, high jumpers perform these two exercises to stretch the anterior muscles of the hip. In both, the hips are pressed upward. Long and triple jumpers must place an emphasis on stretching the hamstrings, gluteals, calves, and lower back in order to establish a good landing position. The exercise shown with the athlete pressing his chest between the knees can also be performed with a partner exerting additional pressure. The exercises shown so far develop static flexibility. They are exercises done with little or no movement of the limbs. Dynamic flexibility exercises, on the other hand, imply movement and have the advantage of developing technique and strength. Many of the exercises shown already as part of the explosive strength program also develop dynamic flexibility. Such exercises are more beneficial than static flexibility exercises because they develop strength through the new developing range of movement. The exercises shown can be used when warming up for competition or away from the track to increase the range of motion. When performing them, the athlete should work both sides of the body to ensure balance.
As the athlete increases his explosive strength, he increases his capacity to use more speed during his approach run. With the improvement in these two factors, the performance of the athlete will improve. An important part of our conditioning program, therefore, is running conditioning. This is subdivided into 4 elements: over-distance efficiency running, under-distance speed work, strength endurance, and speed endurance.
Over-distance efficiency running is designed to improve the endurance of the jumper and at the same time allow concentration on running form. Jumpers begin their over-distance work in the fall. Throughout the year, the distance covered decreases, becoming speed work later in the same year. For example, a jumper running 1 330 and 6 165s in the fall might run 2 165s and 6 60s in March. The athlete takes as much rest between repetitions as needed, sometimes aiming for a target time that decreases as the year progresses. Good form is also emphasized. One such session is run each week throughout the year. In addition to this workout, starting in November, jumpers do a set of sprints each week. These sprints consist of 110s and 165s in November and December, 55s, 110s, and 165s in January and February, and 55s and 110s in March. They total between 550 and 880 yards and are run with good rhythm and leg speed. These prepare the jumper for run-throughs, which come later in the year.
In each of the 3 jumps, the speed of the athlete immediately before takeoff is of the utmost importance. As the speed of the athlete increases, the amount of force exerted by the athlete through the ground also increases. By developing strength endurance, we increase the amount of force available to the athlete.
2 workouts are designed to develop strength endurance. One or the other is used each week in October and November. One, an 800-yard cross-country course forces the athlete to push himself up and down hills. As many as 4 repetitions are run, with a 60-second rest between each. The other strength endurance workout is hill running. Running up a 25% grade, the athlete places overload on the driving muscles of the leg. A workout on the hill for long and triple jumpers totals perhaps 600 yards. For the high jumper, approximately 300 yards. As in all running workouts, maintenance of good form is emphasized. Speed endurance is the quality which allows the athlete to maintain his speed. Speed loss for the jumper, however, is not a real factor because of the length of his approach. What is important is the ability to perform the approach as well as possible a number of times in workouts and in competition. Because of this, speed endurance must be developed. In the fall, the jumper might perform 4 165s with a 55-yard walk or a 60-second rest between each repetition. During subsequent weeks, intensity can be increased by adding reps or by decreasing the resting interval. From January, the emphasis is on quality with fewer repetitions, increased resting interval, faster times, and shorter distances being run. Again, good form is emphasized throughout the year.
Strength and power development, flexibility development, and running conditioning, 3 areas to develop in the aspiring jumper. Individual workouts will vary according to the individual and his situation, but an understanding of these areas and the structuring of workouts to address these areas will supply the conditioning necessary for jumpers at all levels of competition.
meters and the 400-meter hurdles are two very grueling events conducted on the track. Athletes in these two events must perform at full speed for approximately a minute. The intermediate hurdler must also negotiate 10 obstacles set up around the track. Dennis Whitby, our sprint and hurdle coach at the University of Oregon, emphasizes several areas of conditioning for the athlete in these two events.
Conditioning for 400-meter runners and intermediate hurdlers is broken down into the same three areas used in the sprints and high hurdles program: strength and power development, flexibility development, and running conditioning. More emphasis, however, is placed upon endurance in the program followed by athletes in these longer distances. Conditioning begins with the development of strength endurance. As with the short sprints program, this is developed by using a combination of Nautilus and free weights exercises.
Nautilus machines are used to exercise isolated muscle groups. They are also designed to work the muscles through the entire range of movement. The following exercises are recommended for 400-meter runners and intermediate hurdlers. Back extensions are used to develop the muscles of the lower back. Incline sit-ups are used to develop the abdominal muscles. This is just one of many variations of this exercise. The hip and back exercise allows the athlete to develop muscles used in leg drive, an important component of sprinting and hurdling. Leg curls are performed to develop the athlete's hamstrings. Hamstrings are too often neglected in conditioning. They counterbalance the powerful quadricep muscles at the front of the leg and must be well conditioned. Leg extensions and the leg press are both used to develop the quadriceps, an important muscle group used in leg extension. The abductor-adductor machine is used to develop the much neglected abductors and adductors of the leg. Toe raises are performed three ways: with the feet rotated outwards, with the feet parallel, and with the feet rotated inward. This exercise develops the calf muscles, important in the driving action of the 400-meter runner. Muscles used in the driving action of the arms are developed using the behind the neck, pull down, and pull over exercises on Nautilus machines. Free weights exercises incorporate elements of balance and coordination into the lifting process. The following free weight exercises are recommended for 400-meter runners and intermediate hurdlers. The bench press develops the muscles of the upper chest, shoulders, and arms. The incline bench press places stress on the pectoralis muscles of the chest and the anterior deltoid of the shoulder. A number of different exercises can be used for the development of the biceps and triceps. Two effective exercises are curls for the biceps and tricep extensions, with the weight lowered behind the neck for the triceps. Knee pickup is very important for both the 400-meter runner and the intermediate hurdler. The muscles used in this movement can be developed by using the hip flexion exercise. Stepping onto a bench while carrying additional weight can be used to develop muscles involved in leg drive. When performed properly, the athlete drives up with his free leg and fully extends the supporting leg. Although no two programs of weight training are the same, the basic aim of the athlete is to increase resistance as conditioning improves. Strength is gained by overloading the body, either in terms of weights, number of repetitions, or number of sets. A weight training program must always be performed under close supervision.
At the same time that we're developing strength endurance in the weights room, we're using additional exercises to develop explosive strength. These exercises channel strength into the event itself and at the same time develop dynamic flexibility.
One drill effective for developing quickness as well as strength in the legs is hurdle jumping. Performed over low hurdles placed 7 to 9 feet apart, the athlete incorporates speed and strength into one drill. This drill might be performed initially over 10 hurdles. The athlete could perform the sequence using 2 legs and each leg separately, a total of 12 times, each attempt being timed. The number of hurdles and the distance between the hurdles can be increased as the athlete grows stronger. Another very effective drill for building explosive strength in the legs is running stadium steps. Sometimes done with weights, this drill might be performed for 10 to 12 repetitions. The number of repetitions can be increased as strength increases. Sprinting arm action, performed in the sprinting position with a weight in each hand, simulates the driving action of the arms during the race. This drill is used to develop technique and arm strength throughout the range of movement of the arms. This drill can be performed on a time basis according to the athlete's event. One additional drill which places specific emphasis on the thighs and builds strength and quickness is called the split squat. With up to 40 pounds on his shoulders, the athlete performs continuous splits, jumping from one extended position to the next. Between 10 and 15 reps might be performed. The number of reps can be increased as conditioning improves.
Flexibility is probably the most neglected area of conditioning. Yet flexibility is of the utmost importance to the 400-meter runner and the intermediate hurdler for a number of reasons. First, flexibility reduces the chance of soreness and injury. Second, the athlete can develop hip extension and thus leg drive by stretching the quadriceps. Third, by stretching the hamstrings and gluteals in addition to the quadriceps, the athlete's stride length can be increased. If the athlete's leg speed remains constant, an increase in stride length, however small, implies an increase in body speed. Finally, by stretching the hip rotators and muscles of the lower back, the hurdler will improve his efficiency over the hurdles.
The following exercises are examples of drills used to increase the flexibility of 400-meter runners and intermediate hurdlers. In the first exercise, the athlete stretches the upper hamstrings. One leg is kept flat on the ground as the knee of the other leg is pressed to the chest. If the leg is straightened once the knee reaches the chest, the lower hamstrings are also stretched. In the second exercise, the athlete stretches the quadriceps and gastrocnemius, or calf muscle, of the straightened trail leg as it is pressed upward. The same muscle groups are stretched in this exercise as the heel of the straightened trail leg is pressed backwards and the crotch pressed downwards towards the ground in an attempt to increase the angle between the thighs. In the next position, the front and back splits, the athlete again attempts to increase the angle between his thighs. With the heel of the straightened front leg on the ground, the hamstrings and calf muscle of that leg are stretched, while at the same time, the quadriceps and calf muscle of the trail leg are stretched. If kept straight, the gastrocnemius of that leg is stretched by pressing the heel backward and the crotch downward. This exercise is also performed by hurdlers with the heel of the lead leg resting on a hurdle. The athlete can stretch the hamstrings and calf muscle by taking small steps towards the hands, which are placed on the ground. Pressing the heels to the ground at the same time, or once the movement has been completed, further stretches the gastrocnemius. The muscle groups of the front of the leg can be stretched by kneeling on the ground and sitting back on the heels. This can help prevent shin splints, a common injury in sprinters and hurdlers. Shoulder flexibility must also be developed in sprinters and hurdlers because a restricted arm action can cause unwanted rotational movements of the limbs and limitations in leg drive and stride length. The two exercises shown here develop flexibility in the rotator cuff and shoulder girdle muscle groups.
Intermediate hurdlers perform the same flexibility exercises as our 400-meter runners. Because of the need to bring the trail leg across the hurdle while keeping the center of gravity low, however, the intermediate hurdler must also develop flexibility in the hip rotators and muscles of the lower back. The following 5 exercises are recommended for intermediate hurdlers.
The first 2 exercises simulate the beginning of what is called the hip circle in hurdling. The first is similar to the front and back splits, but the foot of the trail leg is rotated outward and everted. The athlete again attempts to increase the angle between his thighs. This exercise stretches the adductors, medial hamstrings, and hip rotators of the trail leg. It can also be performed with the heel of the lead leg resting on a hurdle. The second exercise is performed with the lower part of the trail leg resting on the ground. The athlete again attempts to increase the angle between his thighs and stretches the adductor muscles of the lead leg in addition to the adductors, medial hamstrings, and hip rotators of the trail leg. The familiar stretch hurdle position has many advantages. In this position, there is a 90-degree angle between the legs, a 90-degree angle between the trunk and the thigh of the trail leg, and a 45-degree angle between the thigh and the lower trail leg. By working over the lead leg and between the legs, the hurdler stretches the hamstrings of the lead leg and muscles of the lower back. By working over the trail leg, he stretches the adductors of that leg. The exercises shown so far develop static flexibility. They are exercises which are performed with little or no apparent movement of the limbs. When performing these drills, the athlete should apply pressure for about 5 seconds in the end position, beyond which it is painful to go on. He should relax and repeat the procedure, possibly up to 10 times. Dynamic exercises imply movement and have the advantage of developing technique and strength. The following are 2 examples of dynamic flexibility. In these exercises, the athlete performs the trail leg hip circle, bringing the knee of the trail leg through to touch the upper arm with the knee. The leg is then returned through the same pattern of movement. This exercise not only stretches the gluteal muscles and the hip rotators, but also develops technique and strength through the normal range of movement. The exercises shown here can be used when warming up for practice or competition to regain the athlete's existing range of motion. The athlete can also use them away from the track to actually increase his range of motion and increase his sprinting and hurdling efficiency.
The most important part of the 400-meter runners conditioning program is the running conditioning. This is subdivided into 5 elements: distance work, over-distance efficiency running, under-distance or speed work, strength endurance, and speed endurance.
Distance work is used to develop an efficient aerobic base upon which the specific requirements of the 400-meter and intermediate hurdle races can be developed. Athletes preparing for these events at the University of Oregon take 3 or 4 5-mile runs every week early in the year. The frequency of these runs is reduced to 1 5-mile run by March.
Over-distance efficiency running is designed to improve the endurance of the athlete and at the same time allow concentration on running form. 400-meter runners and intermediate hurdlers begin their distance work in the fall, running distances above as well as equal to their competitive distances. Throughout the year, the distances covered decrease, becoming under-distance or speed work later in the year.
A 400-meter runner running a 660, 550, and 440 in the fall might run 2 330s and 5 165s in March. The athlete takes as much rest between repetitions as required, aiming for a good target time, which decreases during the year, and good running form. From January on, a second faster workout is added to efficiency running. During this workout, repetitions are run at distances below 400 meters, but at a pace related to the goal of the athlete for the year. Each repetition is also run using a race pattern to be used during the period of competition. From January, intermediate hurdlers perform 50% of this workout running over hurdles. In addition to these workouts, 400-meter runners and intermediate hurdlers perform a set of sprints each week. This workout is run to maintain leg speed throughout the year and to develop good form. The distances covered increase from 60 yards in October to 165 yards in January.
Towards the end of his race, the athlete strikes the ground with the maximum force available. By developing strength endurance, the athlete increases the amount of force available to him.
2 workouts are designed to increase strength endurance. One, an 800-yard hilly terrain course, forces the athlete to run up and down hills. 3 reps are performed in October. By December, the number of reps increases to 6. From January onward, as emphasis is placed on quality, the number of repetitions is decreased. From February, only 2 or 3 circuits are performed, and this workout alternates with the second strength endurance workout, hill running. Hill running is performed up a 25% grade. During this workout, the athlete places overload on the driving muscles of the leg. The workout for 400-meter runners and intermediate hurdlers totals about 900 yards, with adequate rest between each repetition. Good form and quality are emphasized.
Speed endurance is the quality which allows the 400-meter runner or the intermediate hurdler to maintain his speed towards the end of his race. A common sight in both races is the athlete tying up as he comes down the final straight, possibly losing the race in the last 50 meters. Speed endurance workouts overload the athlete, simulating fatigue conditions experienced towards the end of the race.
Speed endurance is developed by running a set of 300-meter repetitions with limited rest between repetitions. Speed endurance training, involving 1 session per week, is performed throughout the year. In the fall, as many as 5 repetitions might be run with a minute's rest between each. As the year progresses, the number of repetitions is reduced, the resting interval is increased, and target times are lowered. From January, intermediate hurdlers perform the speed endurance workout over hurdles. 3 hurdles are placed in a lane using the normal spacing of 35 meters. 3 more hurdles are placed in the adjacent lane. The athlete runs over the first 3 hurdles and then over the first 3 again. This drill can be performed up to 4 times in one session early in the season, tapering down to 2 or 3 in the early spring.
Strength and power development, flexibility development, and running conditioning. 3 areas to develop in the 400-meter runner and intermediate hurdler. Individual workouts will obviously vary according to the athlete and his situation. But an understanding of these areas of conditioning and the structuring of workouts to address these areas will supply the conditioning necessary for 400-meter runners and intermediate hurdlers.
Are daredevils. It has been said that the vault belongs more to the sport of gymnastics than it does track and field. Like all jumpers, the vaulter requires speed, technique, dynamic flexibility, and explosive strength. He also requires spatial awareness, or air sense, and certainly a great deal of courage.
In this program, we examine the technical aspects of pole vaulting, from the start of the approach to the clearance of the bar. We also examine a number of drills which can be used to develop these aspects of technique. These drills involve the use of poles and gymnastics apparatus and are suitable for both the beginner and the advanced athlete.
We start by examining the hand grip and pole carry. If the vaulter is right-handed, he places his left hand on the pole, palm down. This hand serves as the lower hand during the vault. The right hand grips the pole with the palm up. This hand serves as the upper hand during the vault. The spread between the hands should generally be between 18 and 30 inches. The distance is determined by the athlete's strength, shoulder width, and of course, comfort. If the spread is too large, the vaulter will have trouble later in the vault. When carrying the pole, the hands are equidistant from the body, with the left arm in front of and the right arm behind the body. The pole is carried so that when rotated by the right hand during the plant, the soft side of the pole is forward and to the left, as is shown here. This is the direction in which the pole will give way. The height of the pole tip during the approach run varies. Some vaulters run with the pole held high, as shown here. Most vaulters keep the pole tip approximately eye level. This allows a better approach and plant. It also requires less adjustment as the vaulter approaches the box. Viewed from the front, the pole points to the athlete's left. This improves both balance and the running action of the athlete. The force applied by the vaulter during the plant, the resultant bend in the pole, and to some extent, the vaulter's penetration are determined by the speed of the vaulter on the runway. Indirectly, the speed of the vaulter also determines how high he holds the pole. The faster he runs, the higher he holds, and, other things being equal, the higher he vaults. Only the vaulter's speed immediately before takeoff is important. This must be maintained by running all the way through the takeoff. What happens up to this point is important only in how it contributes to the athlete's maximum controllable speed during the last few strides of the approach. This may be as high as 27 to 30 feet per second or an 11-second pace for the 100 meters. The speed of the vaulter, like that of the sprinter, is determined largely by two factors, leg speed and stride length. By maintaining one and increasing the other, the speed of the vaulter on the runway must increase. An increase in the vaulter's speed, of course, must be accompanied by changes in his pole selection and technique to allow him to use this speed in the vault. But any increase in speed at least gives him the potential for improvement. In most athletes, stride length has more potential for improvement through conditioning and technique development. Leg speed is, to a large extent, determined neurologically. Because of this, the running technique development program works toward increasing stride length while maintaining leg speed. At the same time, the specific needs of the vaulter in terms of head and body position, upper body relaxation, and high knee action are developed.
Our vaulters perform a number of running drills twice each week starting in November. Immediately following these running drills, the vaulter performs a series of sprints. The purpose of these sprints is to integrate aspects of technique developed using running drills into the skill of running at speed. The sprints, therefore, are run with good leg speed. The vaulter also concentrates on technique when performing running workouts as part of his running conditioning program.
Drills are used to develop first, an efficient basic running action, second, upper body relaxation, third, good flexion of the recovery leg, and fourth, good forward upward drive of that leg. At the same time, leg speed is maintained. The vaulter begins by developing a high running action. This pushes him up onto his toes and encourages a full range of motion of the legs. At the same time, the vaulter concentrates on his head position. The head should be kept in normal alignment with the upper body and held steady. The eyes should be focused ahead. These aspects of the vaulter's running technique can be developed using most of the drills to be shown in this program. Since the body must travel in a straight line along the runway, all action of the legs should be performed in a sagittal forward-backward plane. Here we see a vaulter performing the high knee drill, moving forward slowly but maintaining good leg speed. The body is erect. The shoulders are turned as if the vaulter is carrying a pole. The feet are kept behind a vertical line drawn through the knee. While performing this drill, the coach can check that the inner borders of the feet fall along a single straight line. The skilled vaulter shows relaxation of the muscles of the shoulders and the upper arms during his approach. The high knee drill can be used to develop upper body relaxation. While performing the drill, the vaulter holds his arms loosely in front and horizontal to the ground. As he performs the drill, he attempts to avoid any tension in the upper body. The vaulter also works on developing good flexion and good forward-upward drive of the recovery leg. By combining this technique work with the explosive strength and dynamic flexibility developed in the conditioning program, the leg drive of the vaulter will improve. Since stride length is the product of knee drive and leg drive, it will also increase. The instant the toes of the driving leg leave the ground, the leg, now the recovery leg, folds up. In this way, the mass of the leg is brought closer to the hip axis, reducing the leg's moment of inertia and increasing angular velocity. Two drills can be used to develop this action. In one, the vaulter moves forward only because of the action of the lower legs. The aim here is for the vaulter to kick his buttocks with his heels. In the second exercise, called goose stepping, the vaulter brings his recovery leg through folded before extending the leg completely. Knee drive is developed by running stadium steps and by using hill running. Two other drills are shown here. In the first, the hands are placed against the wall with the arms straight and the body at a 45-degree angle. The heels just touch the ground. The knees are brought up in rapid succession and as fast as possible. In the second drill, the vaulter skips over a distance of 30 to 40 meters. These drills allow the vaulter to work on both knee drive and leg drive. Acceleration of the lead leg increases the force exerted by the rear leg against the ground. Two drills which assist in maintaining leg speed are shown here. In the first, the vaulter takes very quick steps for about 5 yards, then jogs another 5. A good range of motion of the legs is encouraged together with compensatory movement of the arms. We call this drill quick stepping. In the second drill, the vaulter takes very short steps as quickly as possible over a distance of 50 yards. The arms are driven as quickly as the feet. A number of coaches also use downhill running to maintain or develop leg speed.
In February and March, vaulters in our program begin to integrate increased stride length with leg speed. They also begin to establish an optimum ratio between the two. Drills are again used, but much of the integration occurs during the running conditioning program.
The optimum ratio of stride length and leg speed can only be practiced when the athlete is running at top speed. The drills used to achieve integration normally involve the regulation of stride length and the performance of this stride length as quickly as possible. Timed runs up bleachers and timed hill runs are examples. During their approach runs, vaulters start easily and gradually accelerate. Good control and rhythm are important. The vaulter thinks tall, holding a fairly upright position with the head erect. This position encourages a high knee lift action, which generates the speed of the athlete. The arms and shoulders are relaxed. The vaulter reaches his maximum controllable speed a few strides from the box. This is maintained into the box. The length of the approach, of course, varies according to the speed of the athlete. It must be long enough for the athlete to reach his maximum controllable speed. Some vaulters have a run in excess of 145 feet in length. Substantial heights, however, have been cleared by vaulters using relatively modest takeoff speeds. These vaulters have approach runs as short as 110 feet. The distance is measured from the back of the box, as shown here.
Our vaulters use a 3-3 count rhythm during their approach runs. This means that they count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 as they approach takeoff. A count is made every time the takeoff foot hits the ground. Here we see a vaulter taking 2 steps before starting his 3-3 count rhythm. We'll count every time the athlete hits the ground with his left or takeoff foot. The final 3 is the takeoff step.
Most vaulters use only one check mark. This is placed where the vaulter stands to start his approach. If a second check mark is used, it is placed opposite an early step so that the vaulter can be certain of an accurate start to his approach. Here we see a second mark placed 5 strides down the runway to coincide with the vaulter's first count of 3. A difference of only 2 or 3 inches at this point will affect his takeoff point. During practice, a third check mark might be used. Here we see one placed 7 strides from takeoff. When used at this point, it may serve as a cue for the vaulter to quicken his rhythm and pick up his knees as he approaches the box. Such a check mark would not, however, be used in competition. The vaulter can use a number of drills to develop his use of check marks, his stride consistency, approach pattern, and rhythm count. By running over low hurdles, the vaulters can develop stride consistency and rhythm. In another drill shown here, the vaulter performs his approach without a pole, running over sticks laid across the runway. The sticks prevent the athlete from increasing his speed by overstriding. The same drill can, in time, be performed with the athlete carrying the pole. Run-throughs are used to develop various aspects of the vaulter's approach in practice or to re-establish his approach pattern immediately before competition. Performed with or without a pole, the vaulter performs his approach on the runway using only the check marks used in competition and concentrates on his approach pattern. The vaulter can also concentrate on aspects of his approach when performing elements of his running conditioning program. There is a quickening of rhythm and an emphasis on high knee action during the last 3 or 4 strides of the approach. The vaulter settles during the penultimate stride. The last stride is between 8 and 18 inches shorter than the penultimate stride. If the athlete stretches this stride, his plant will be low and his center of gravity will be too far behind the takeoff point. As a result, his forward-upward drive will be reduced.
The plant is probably the most important part of the vault. It should be performed early, smoothly, and quickly. During his final approach, the vaulter lowers the tip of the pole as he guides it towards the box with his left arm. The plant is started as the vaulter passes from his left to his right foot, 2 strides from the box.
He uses a curl press action to elevate the pole, keeping the right hand and arm close to the body. The top hand is taken forward and upward simultaneously at an angle of 50 to 60 degrees. By the time the vaulter takes his last right step, the pole must be up and forward enough to be level with his right ear. As the vaulter moves from his right foot to his takeoff step, the pole keeps moving upward. The pole enters the front of the box and continues upward as it slides toward the back of the box. Before the last step is completed, the pole is planted with the top arm fully extended overhead. The extension of the top arm cannot be emphasized enough. The plant should be as high as possible. A line drawn through the grip should pass through the vaulter's center of gravity and takeoff foot. The shoulders should be square and the vaulter balanced. The pole splits the nose of the vaulter.
We now come to the important aspect of pole vaulting known as penetration. Penetration refers to taking off with minimum loss of horizontal momentum so that the vaulter has energy to clear the bar without stalling out.
The degree of penetration depends on a number of factors. 2 of these, good speed on the runway and a high plant, have already been discussed. Another factor which affects penetration is the use of a correct takeoff position. Here we see an athlete in his final plant position. He is high on the ball of the takeoff foot, and his top arm is fully extended overhead. If a plumb line is dropped from the top hand, it should pass through the ball of the foot. In this position, the body of the vaulter forms a reverse C. This is the ideal takeoff position. The vaulter can practice his plant and get a feel for his takeoff position by performing his plant as he takes 3 steps toward the vaulting box. He moves the pole forward as he steps onto his left foot to a count of 1. He initiates his plant as he moves from his left to his right foot to a count of 2. He then steps onto his left foot to a count of 3 and finishes in his takeoff position. Here we see the plumb line drop from the top hand. It passes through the ball of the foot. Many top vaulters actually take off inside this point. If the vaulter is too far inside, however, the pole will lift the vaulter before he can drive against the ground. The left arm may collapse and the vaulter will have no time to get back. If the vaulter takes off too far outside, his forward upward drive will be reduced. Once the takeoff position has been established, the athlete adjusts his check marks to bring him to that position. Here we see the vaulter performing a run-through and having his step marked. In this case, his step is inside his ideal takeoff point, which is marked by the white tape. He must now adjust his check marks or approach pattern to bring him to that point. Having done that, he performs another run-through. This time, his step is on. One drill which allows the athlete to work on both his approach and plant involves the use of a towel or movable box. This is placed on the track and the athlete measures his approach back from that point. He then performs his approach and plants the pole on the towel, concentrating on the timing of the plant and a fully extended top arm. Two other factors which affect penetration are horizontal drive on takeoff and the adoption of a hang position immediately following takeoff. After takeoff, a combination of the athlete's weight and his horizontal distance from the box causes a gradual loss of horizontal momentum and penetration. This loss can be minimized by the vaulter jumping to the back of the pit on takeoff and hanging with the body arched and the trail leg trailing. This keeps the center of gravity low and permits the pole to move forward as rapidly as possible. The knee of the right leg, the chest, and the hips are driven forward. The vaulter presses down the pole with both arms extended. By pressing with the bottom arm, the approach and takeoff speed of the vaulter is transmitted to the pole. This action also keeps the vaulter behind the pole. The degree of flexion of the bottom arm varies from vaulter to vaulter. If it collapses, the athlete will fail to bend the pole sufficiently. He will get ahead of the pole and stall out due to lack of penetration. Here we see a vaulter perform a drill that we call blocking. He takes a 2 or 3 stride approach before planting and jumping horizontally as if to land on the pit. He presses with the bottom arm. This places the vaulter in an excellent hang position before lack of penetration brings him back onto the runway. Good takeoff technique can also be developed by using the skipping drill shown here. In this drill, the vaulter leaves the ground, driving forwards and upwards with the knee of the free leg and taking the arms high as if planting a pole. He then takes 2 steps to bring him back onto his takeoff foot again.
Although the athlete attempts to maximize his horizontal drive and hang position to increase his penetration, the bend of the pole should not exceed 90 degrees at any point in the vault. In terms of direction, the pole should follow an arc to the athlete's left. This is shown here. If the pole is bent to more than 90 degrees and arcs more directly to the athlete's left, it will not recoil with any force and the athlete will blow through the vault and drift toward the right-hand standard. If, as mentioned previously, the athlete fails to bend the pole sufficiently, he will stall out before reaching the pit.
In the first case, the vaulter can either lower his grip or go to a stiffer pole. This will reduce the amount of bend. Since the height of the top hand is one of the most important factors in determining how high he can jump, however, the vaulter is generally reluctant to lower his grip to reduce the bend in the pole. He therefore switches to a stiffer pole. In the second case, the athlete will switch to a softer pole while maintaining the height of his hand grip. While the vaulter is hanging on the pole, he is swinging forward and upward with the pole at an angle of 45 degrees. The athlete maintains his hang until he has penetrated enough to ensure a good carry. Before the pole reaches its maximum bend and stops moving forward, the vaulter begins to rock back as quickly as possible, attempting to get into a position where he can achieve the maximum vertical thrust. During the first part of the rock back, the vaulter must continue to keep himself away from the pole. He does this by continuing to press down the pole with both arms, by piking at the hips, and by sweeping the trail leg up quickly. By keeping himself behind the pole, he keeps his center of gravity in line with the true axis of the pole, a straight line drawn from the hand grip to the box. This bends the pole and prolongs penetration. The actual rocking action consists of a circular action of the leading knee and a fast sweep of the delayed trail leg. The hips then follow and rise as one knee or both knees are brought to the chest. By piking at the hips and bending the knees, the moment of inertia about the shoulders is reduced and the speed of rotation increased. The rock back must be delayed. If it is performed too early, the pole will stop moving and the athlete will stall out. Failure to get back, however, will cause the vaulter to rotate into the bar. The importance of flexibility of the lower back, gluteals, hamstring, and calf muscles in assisting the vaulter achieve the rock back position is obvious. The athlete, using the residual momentum from the rocking action, moves into his rock back position and then into his pull and extension. This must be vertical, along the long axis of the pole. The right leg crosses the body to the left to initiate the turn as the vaulter pulls and uses a pronounced hip and leg thrust. Failure to initiate the turn with the right leg will cause the vaulter to drift toward the right-hand standard. The turn is completed with the shoulders. The push-off is merely a continuation of the pulling action and places the vaulter in a handstand position with his front open to the bar. As the knees pass the bar, the vaulter pikes, drops his legs, and pushes away with his top hand. The elbows are taken back behind the shoulders and the chest hollowed as the vaulter rotates around the bar. Short approach runs using a soft pole and gripping at 12 or 13 feet allow the athlete to work on his plant, swing, rock back, pull, and extension. Here we see the vaulter performing a swing up. He plants early and high with his top arm, resisting with his bottom arm. He then swings through to an inverted position on the pole to pull with his arms and simultaneously extend his hips. In another example, we see the vaulter take off to swing onto his back to perform a back somersault. Needless to say, this drill should only be performed under careful supervision. The same aspects of technique can be developed using a stiff pole. Here, the vaulter concentrates on a high plant with an extended top arm before swinging through to land on the pit. Use of a softer pole or greater speed on the runway would allow the vaulter to bend his pole and work on its press, horizontal drive, and hang, as well as the top end of the vault. This simple drill gives the young vaulter the feel for the pull, turn, and push off. The body must be kept close to the pole so that it moves along the long axis.
Many drills using gymnastics apparatus can be used to develop phases of the vault from the swing to the clearance of the bar.
The first drill shown here allows the vaulter to concentrate on his swing and rock back. The vaulter steps back 4 or 5 paces holding a rope. He releases the rope, which swings forward, then backwards to the vaulter. As the rope goes forward again, the vaulter runs and slides his top hand to grip as high as possible. He then swings and rocks back. The next 2 drills are used to develop the technique of rocking back and moving immediately through the pull, extension, and turn. In the first drill, the vaulter starts by hanging from the rings. He then moves into the rock back position. The hips are thrust upward, preceding the pulling action of the arms. Simultaneously, the right leg is driven upward and across the left shoulder. The left leg cuts back and under in a scissors movement. The result is a spiraling action. This drill can also be performed on a stationary rope. In the second drill, the vaulter and the rings swing forward and backward. Once the rings pass the vertical during a forward swing, the vaulter starts to rock back. As the rings reach the limit of their forward swing, he thrusts his hips high and pulls with his arms. He then underswings backwards in preparation for the next forward swing. In the drill shown here, the vaulter concentrates on his pull and extension. He starts in a hanging position and lifts his hips up toward the bar. As they reach the bar, the vaulter pulls into the bar and thrusts his legs and hips above the bar. He then completes a back pullover to finish resting on the bar. Here we see 2 examples of rope vaulting. In the first, the vaulter allows the rope to swing and then runs to slide his top hand to grip as high as possible. He then rocks back to pull, extend, turn, and push off to clear a tape which is 10 feet off the ground. In the second example, the vaulter stands on a platform which is approximately 13 feet high. He grasps the end of the rope and swings down and up. Once the vaulter has passed the vertical at the bottom of the swing, he rocks back, pulls, extends and turns, and pushes away to clear the bar. This may be as high as 18 feet. The next drill can be used to develop the vault from the pull and extension phase to the final bar clearance. The athlete starts by hanging on a bar. A right-handed vaulter undergrasps the bar with his right hand and overgrasps the bar with his left hand. The vaulter first develops swing momentum. He then swings backward into an uprise and underswings forward. He drives the right leg up and across the left shoulder, cuts the left leg back, and thrusts the hips vertically, attempting to gain as much height as possible during the half-turn dismount. A tape is positioned for the vaulter to clear. We call this exercise the power cast. The trampoline allows the vaulter to develop spatial awareness as well as specific techniques. Here we see the athlete performing exercises which simulate hip extension and turning. Many vaulters incorporate advanced exercise routines in their technique development programs.
Many of the drills shown so far involve the isolation of various aspects of vaulting technique. Only by returning to the complete skill of pole vaulting, however, can it be developed. Because of this, more and more time is spent as the year goes by on vaulting from a full approach. During these drills, of which there may be 20 or 30 in a session, the jumper concentrates on those aspects of technique previously developed in drills. Pole vaulting requires both physical conditioning and technical preparation. One error in technique or a weakness in conditioning can prevent an athlete from becoming a proficient vaulter. The vaulting drills illustrated in this program will help the vaulter to develop his technical proficiency and compete successfully.
A good hurdler, one must first be a good sprinter. I therefore recommend to all hurdlers that you refer to our sprint technique program that is a part of this series. Our sprint and hurdle coach, Dennis Whitby, has developed a number of drills that will help you with your hurdle technique.
It so happens, of course, that there are 10 barriers to be negotiated by the hurdler during his race. It is these barriers and their arbitrary positioning that add to the complexity of hurdling and distinguish it from sprinting.
There are, of course, major differences between the two hurdle races. In the high hurdles, the fixed distance between the hurdles restricts to 3 the number of strides taken by the athlete between hurdles. Regardless of the athlete's height, leg length, technique, strength, and flexibility, therefore, the length of his strides between the hurdles is regulated. In the intermediates, the longer distance between hurdles and the fact that 1/2 of the race is run on curves allows greater flexibility in the athlete's stride pattern. In the highs, every 4th stride must be modified to allow the athlete to clear a hurdle. Similar modifications are necessary in the intermediates, but the lower hurdle height demands fewer modifications in clearing the hurdle. In both races, the hurdle stride must retain the characteristics of normal sprinting as much as possible.
Our hurdles technique development program at the University of Oregon is superimposed on the sprints program at the beginning of the year. Later in the year, however, the specific demands of the hurdling events results in the separation of much of this work. In this program, we will outline in detail the technique work which distinguishes the hurdler from the sprinter.
In the first phase, which occurs in October and November, the hurdlers perform the same drills performed by the sprinters. These are designed to 1. Establish an efficient basic running action, 2. Develop an efficient arm action and shoulder position, 3. Maintain leg speed, and 4. Develop upper body relaxation. These drills are performed twice a week. Only 1 or 2 aspects of technique are emphasized in any single workout. Immediately following these sprint drills, the athlete performs hurdling drills. These drills are designed to develop 1. A fast lead leg action, 2. Correct upper body positioning, 3. An efficient arm action, and 4. A fast trail leg action performed through the correct path and range of movement. Most of these drills are performed over 42-inch barriers. Unless an intermediate hurdler also runs the highs, he performs the drills over 39-inch barriers. As with the sprint drills, only 1 or 2 aspects of technique are emphasized in any one workout. Immediately following the hurdle drills, the athlete performs a series of sprints ranging in distance from 60 to 110 yards. The intermediate hurdler runs over distances ranging from 60 to 165 yards. While doing these sprints, the athlete concentrates on the same aspect of running technique practiced at the beginning of the workout.
The purpose of these sprints is to integrate this technique into the skill of running at speed. The sprints are therefore run with good leg speed.
Before looking at specific hurdle drills, let's examine the hurdler's technique during the first part of the hurdle stride, the takeoff. As he drives at the hurdle, we are concerned mainly with 3 aspects of his technique: the lead leg action, upper body lean, and the arm action. A fast bent lead leg action is probably the most important aspect of the hurdler's technique. The knee is driven toward the top of the hurdle with the lower leg folded against the thigh to increase velocity of the leg. A fast lead leg action has 2 main advantages. First, it increases the force exerted by the trail leg against the ground. This, in turn, increases the horizontal momentum of the hurdler across the hurdle and causes the trail leg to be suitably delayed. Second, it allows the athlete to take off closer to the hurdle. As the lead leg is driven forward, the athlete leans into the hurdle, leading with his head and shoulders. This has 3 effects. First, it places the hurdler's body in a position to benefit from the drive of the trail leg. Second, the moment of inertia of the body around the takeoff foot is reduced, encouraging forward rotation over the hurdle. Third, forward rotation of the upper body later allows the trail leg to be brought through flat. The arm action during takeoff is coordinated with the lead leg action and body lean. It performs the same function as in sprinting, absorbing the leg action. The arm action, therefore, should vary as little as possible from the technique used in sprinting. As the bent lead leg is driven toward the top of the hurdle and the head and shoulders are taken forward, the lead arm is bent as in sprinting, but taken around to the front and across the body. Only the arms take up the movement of the legs. The shoulders are kept low and square. The backswing of the other arm counterbalances the driving trail leg. The greater the leg drive, the greater the range of movement of the arm behind the body. When the arm is taken back, be sure to lead with the elbow. Shown here is a drill which allows the athlete to develop the correct lead leg action, body lean, and arm action on takeoff. A right lead leg hurdler stands approximately 6 feet from a hurdle. He steps forward onto his left foot and drives his right knee at the hurdle as if taking off. The right foot lands on the hurdle. The same drill is shown here using a wall. The fast lead leg action causes the athlete to extend his trail leg. Note that he finishes high up on the ball of that foot. In time, once the basic patterns are learned, there can be more emphasis on speed.
Immediately following takeoff, the lead leg extends just before the trail leg loses contact with the ground. At this point, the athlete is in a near splits position. The foot of the lead leg is cocked and the leg should be straight. Now we can see the need for so much flexibility work in the hurdler's conditioning program. The leg does not stop moving. Even before it extends, it starts down toward the ground on the other side of the hurdle, clearing it by a couple of inches.
As noted earlier, a fast lead leg increases the drive and delay of the trail leg. As soon as contact with the ground is lost, the lower trail leg folds against the upper leg as a natural reaction to the thrust, and the knee and foot are turned outward. The trail leg, folded and with the knee leading, comes around so that the knee and hip pass the hurdle at the same time, with a 90-degree angle between the trunk and thigh. The thigh should be parallel to the hurdle. The foot should be pointed outward or everted. Hurdlers vary in the amount of body lean during clearance. American hurdlers tend to keep the chest down towards and even touch the knee. This further encourages forward rotation, and the additional weight forces the lead leg down faster and earlier. European hurdlers maintain a more upright body position. Although this corresponds more closely to the normal sprinting position, it demands more flexibility to allow the trail leg to come through correctly. Whatever the degree of body lean, the shoulders must still be square with the eyes focused ahead. The arms continue to balance the leg action. The leading arm tends to straighten as the lead leg straightens. As the leg moves downward and backward, the arm is taken downward and backward close to the body. The rear arm performs a vigorous, short forward swing as in sprinting. This balances the trail leg as it is brought through. The landing on the lead leg is made with the maximum possible backward speed of the leg relative to the hips. The hurdler pivots over the extended leg into the first stride off the hurdle. If he collapses at this point, horizontal momentum is lost. The trail leg is pulled through by the lead arm going back. The hurdler maintains the height of the trail leg until clear of the hurdle. At this time, the knee and foot are swung to the ground in a natural sprinting action. The lean of the hurdler as he lands is as close as possible to the lean used when sprinting. Keeping the body weight forward on landing helps maintain momentum into the next stride. The arm action on landing resembles that of sprinting, with the arms already in position to perform a powerful drive during the first stride off the hurdle.
Here we see a number of drills which allow the athlete to practice his technique. The first drill is the 5-stride lead leg drill. In this drill, we place 5 or 6 hurdles in position using normal spacing. Running on the line, the athlete performs his lead leg action over the end of the hurdle, coordinating it with his arm action and body lean. The hurdler performs 5 strides between each hurdle.
The second drill is the 5-stride trail leg drill. In this drill, the athlete again runs down the line. This time he concentrates on his trail leg action as he brings the leg over the hurdle. The lead leg must be picked up and placed down as if taken over a lower hurdle next to the one in place. In the next drill, we place a number of hurdles in line, approximately 13 feet apart. The distance varies according to the age and height of the athlete. The hurdler again runs down the line and performs his lead leg action over the end of the hurdles. Only one stride is taken between the hurdles. This drill is ideal for the development of body lean and for practicing lead leg and arm action. It also encourages extension, drive, and delay of the trail leg. It can also be performed indoors and allows a lot of hurdling to be done in a short period of time. We call this drill the single stride lead leg drill. Also shown here is the single stride trail leg drill and the normal single stride drill. The intermediate hurdler can do the 2-stride drill. This is an excellent drill for the athlete who wants to learn to alternate. In the trail leg drill shown here, the athlete places his hands against a wall with the arms straight and the upper body at a 45-degree angle. The heels just touch the ground. A hurdle is placed opposite the hip on the side of the trail leg. From this position, the athlete can practice his trail leg action as shown. Notice how he raises up on the ball of the front foot as the leg is brought over. The shoulders are kept square. Two other technique drills for the trail leg action are included in the hurdler's conditioning program. In these exercises, the athlete performs the trail leg hip circle, bringing the knee of the trail leg through to touch the upper arm. The leg is then returned through the same pattern of movement. This exercise develops flexibility and strength as well as technique.
In the second phase of technique development in December and January, sprint drills are discontinued, but the same hurdle drills are used. These are followed for the high hurdler by 3-stride quality work, normally performed using a running start. Much of this work is integrated with the speed work and speed endurance of his conditioning program.
Here we see a high hurdler running over 5 hurdles at speed, concentrating on his technique both over and between the hurdles. We emphasize staying high between hurdles. This saves time and energy that would otherwise be wasted raising the center of gravity for each hurdle. A high running position also ensures efficient running between hurdles. Another workout shown here is designed to develop leg speed. In this workout, our high hurdlers run over hurdles which are placed only 9 yards apart. This forces a quick turnover of the legs. These workouts are also performed by intermediate hurdlers using 36 or 39-inch hurdles. Intermediate hurdlers also need to work on the curve. Here we see 2 examples of their workouts. In the first, an intermediate hurdler is practicing his left leg lead on the curve, running 5 strides between hurdles. In the second example, he is alternating on the straightaway, using 6 strides between hurdles. These drills are followed, as before, by a series of sprints. During these sprints, the athlete works on the same aspects of running technique developed during the first phase of the program. The athlete also concentrates on sprinting technique when performing his speed work and hill runs.
In the third phase of technique development, the hurdle drills previously shown are used for warm-up. The high hurdler now concentrates on his block clearance and his approach to the first hurdle. At the same time, he continues to perform quality hurdling. As before, much of this work is integrated with his conditioning program. He now performs nearly all of his longer runs over hurdles from blocks. The intermediate hurdler continues to use drills outlined in the second phase, but also spends time developing his stride pattern. Again, much of this work is integrated with his conditioning work.
We start by looking at the block clearance of the high hurdler. At the beginning of the program, it was stated that because of the arbitrary distance between hurdles, the length of each athlete's strides are regulated to a considerable degree. Under these circumstances, given 2 athletes competing against each other, any difference in speed from one hurdle to the next is due basically to leg speed. Although there can be a slight variation in the distance covered due to block placement, such is also the case from block clearance to takeoff at the first hurdle. If the front block is placed 18 inches from the line and the hurdler takes off 7 feet 6 inches from the first hurdle, the average length of each of the athlete's strides from the front block to takeoff is only 4 feet 10 inches. Obviously, leg speed is of considerable importance to the high hurdler, both out of the blocks and between the hurdles. The high hurdler adopts an on-your-marks position and a set position similar to that used by the sprinter. These are outlined in the sprint technique program. The 2 most important aspects of technique during block clearance are 1, the drive of the leg against the front block, and 2, the knee drive of the rear leg. The first is important because it is responsible for the drive of the hips away from the block. It must be counterbalanced by driving the opposite arm high behind the body. Knee drive is important because it increases leg drive and stride length. Knee drive is counterbalanced by throwing the opposite arm high in front of the body at an angle less than 90 degrees. Just as the range of movement of the legs is reflected in the range of movement of the arms must be driven forward and backward at high speed for the legs to respond at high speed. The combination of range and speed of limb movement determines body speed away from the blocks. Be sure to keep the shoulders low and square throughout. Immediately following block clearance, the athlete's leg drive, knee drive, and arm action drive the hips forward, creating a natural body lean. If leg drive is present, the athlete will adopt a natural forward lean. The greater the leg drive, the greater the lean. Unlike the sprinter, however, the high hurdler is almost upright by the fourth or fifth stride as he sights and adjusts to the first hurdle. Here we see a high hurdler performing block starts to the first hurdle. He is timed to touch down on the far side of the first hurdle. Next, we see the hurdler going over 5 hurdles. During this drill, of course, he can be timed to touch down at any of the 5 hurdles. The techniques of block clearance for the intermediate hurdler are obviously the same. He also performs block starts over 1 hurdle, and these can be timed. An intermediate hurdler aiming for a time of 53.0 seconds, for example, would expect to touch down at the first hurdle in 6.3 seconds. The intermediate hurdler's approach to the first hurdle, however, is less regulated because of the additional distance and because it is run on the curve. Most intermediate hurdlers use anywhere from 21 to 23 strides to the first hurdle. High hurdlers, of course, normally use 8 strides. This raises the question of stride patterns for intermediate hurdlers, and we will now examine this aspect of the intermediate hurdler's preparation. Throughout an open 400-meter race, the athlete's stride shortens. This, of course, is due to fatigue. Because of this, the majority of athletes are unable to cover the distance between hurdles toward the end of the race using the same number of strides that they use when they are fresh at the beginning of the race. Most athletes, therefore, change down once or twice as the race progresses. Changing down refers to the insertion of 1 or 2 strides between hurdles as a reaction to the shortening of the runner's stride due to fatigue. An athlete who starts by running 15 strides between hurdles might change down after the 5th hurdle and run 17 strides between hurdles for the remainder of the race. He is said to run 15s to 17s. Adding 2 strides between hurdles is forced on any intermediate hurdler who can use only his right leg or his left leg as his lead leg. Unfortunately, it results in a drastic reduction of 8 inches in the average length of each stride, and the athlete must run wider on the curve to ensure a smooth transition. It is far better for an athlete to change down by adding only 1 stride. To do this, he must be able to hurdle using either leg as his lead leg. This is called alternating. Changing down does not necessarily mean a loss of speed. It can be a very positive part of the race. When changing down, the athlete simply substitutes leg speed for stride length. Body speed should remain the same. It is like changing down the gears while driving a car. The revolutions increase, but the car does not slow down. Here we summarize the various stride patterns. You'll note that these stride patterns allow the athlete to adjust to the natural shortening of his stride as fatigue takes its toll. There have, however, been many world-class hurdlers who have performed 13s, 14s, or 15s all the way around. Our intermediate hurdlers combine stride pattern work with their conditioning program. Sections of the race are practiced at race speed with the hurdler working on several aspects of his race, as his approach to the first hurdle, his stride pattern over the first 5 hurdles, and his change down technique on the curve. A typical workout might be 3 starts over the first hurdle, followed by timed runs over 5 hurdles, 4 hurdles, and 3 hurdles. Here we see an athlete working on his line of approach to the first hurdle. If you count, you will see that he takes 21 strides. Here we see another hurdler running out of the blocks and performing his normal stride pattern over 3 hurdles. Watch carefully, and you'll see that he takes 14 strides between the hurdles. In other words, he alternates between his left and right legs as he clears the hurdles.
Good hurdling has its roots in good sprinting. Coaches and athletes should first take the time to build a solid foundation of running conditioning and technique. After this is laid, the athlete can work on technique and conditioning which is more specific to the hurdling events. Proper use of the drills outlined in this program should go a long way toward the development of the competitive hurdler.
I'll be back.